meditation, stillness. I have known so many. I remember once when I was 5 years old, and she was probably 12. My sister put some chocolate chip cookies in a brown paper bag, grabbed this blanket, and she took it out to the backyard and spread it out. And we sat down, and she opened the bag and gave me a cookie. And then she said, "Ruru, this is a picnic." And that was the first time I learned how to use my imagination to turn something very basic into something that was magical. How do you know this isn't a dream you're having? And if this is a dream, does that make it any less real? Ego loves identity. Drag mocks identity. Ego hates drag. The biggest challenge for sweet, sensitive souls who uncover life's cruel hoax is really to not succumb to the bitterness, that usually accompanies this discovery. And I find spiritual practice is, of course, the best defense. Prayer, meditation, stillness. I have known so many brilliantly talented geniuses who used their own intellect against themselves. Like the thorns of a rose growing inward on itself.
Good morning. The words you've been listening to are drawn from the works of one of the great pop theologians of our time, the entrepreneur, performing artist, and drag queen, RuPaul. In honor of Salt Lake City's annual GLBT Pride celebration and this congregation's involvement in gay rights, our service this morning is abbreviated, short and sweet, as it's been put, to allow this community to worship and then head downtown to join the festivities, march in the parade with this congregation's contingent, celebrating 125 years of liberal and liberating religion in Salt Lake City, and to continue the work of this congregation's mission to actively engage in building a just and progressive world. If this mission speaks to you, you belong here for a day or a lifetime. You will see in your bulletin any number of activities toward that end, and I commend them to you and encourage you to avail yourself of those which call to you. I remind you, too, that next week's Sunday worship service is at the 10 o'clock hour, and after that Sunday, we will proceed to the summer forum in the following Sundays with any number of exciting and interesting speakers on contemporary issues relevant to this community and the larger world. Also, a reminder that the church picnic is next Sunday after that service. For now, though, I invite you into this moment, here, now, to be more fully present in the pew where you are, in the body that you are in the breath that you are breathing and that breathes you. Symbol of light and of knowledge, symbol of warmth and of freedom, we light this chalice as a symbol of our faith. Here we gather to celebrate hope and the infinite possibilities of love. As a further invitation into a meditative space this morning, I'll share some words with you from the International Council of Unitarians and Universalists. Every month, this organization, which represents Unitarian Universalist and Unitarian Universalist congregations all around the globe, sends a common reading that all of our communities might be joined at least once with similar words. And so these words were originally submitted, and I'm going to not pronounce the name correctly, by the Assemblée des Chrétiens Unitariens du Burundi, the words from Fulgence Najijama. Let these words then invite you into silence for meditation. When people meet, endless possibilities emerge. New cultural experiences and openness to new ways of understanding and doing things. A special attention to the other, and a sense of service beyond self-development. Today, this morning, let us open our minds and hearts to the willingness to grow, to enriching curiosity, and to active cooperation. Most holy, beloved Spirit of life, we pause here on this edge of a week and a day, knowing that with every pause, life continues. We recognize solidarity with our Muslim brothers and sisters who are beginning the observance of Ramadan, long days of fasting, late nights and early mornings of celebration. As we still ourselves, we become aware of all that is not still within us, our minds, our hearts, our breaths, and all that is not still around us. Whether celebrating revolution and gay pride or fighting for safety, whether mourning deaths or welcoming new life, the violence that may be named as terror or may be named and legitimized as airstrikes, the weather that destroys even as it recreates, wind and rain, fire and heat. The political rhetoric that infuses our time, creeps into our hearts and minds, and makes it difficult to find ground and to know truth. Help us to use this time wisely and well, to refresh ourselves, to challenge ourselves, to open ourselves to these imperfect words. We add the silent intentions of our hearts. May our prayers be heard, may our hearts be restored, and may our hope be renewed. Shalom, salam, amen, and blessed be. I didn't think anything could be more haunting than the vocal version of that. But wow, thank you. Thank you. Okay, I've got to start with a confession. Hi, I'm Matthew Cockrum, and I'm a RuPaul addict. Somebody else? Joe? Yes, thank you. Although we're anonymous, I guess, so this all stays here, except YouTube, right? It's not always been this way. I mean, I did watch Dustin Hoffman play Tootsie growing up, and I really liked that. I saw a few episodes of Bosom Buddies as a kid, and I have to say I have a sad memory of a horror flick where the killer turned out to be someone who was transgender, supposedly explaining it all. But I've not always been either a drag queen fanatic or a RuPaul fanatic. Though my husband will tell you it's not unusual for me to indulge in binge viewing whatever my series of choice is, usually vampire-related. As a matter of fact, when I first encountered drag queens in person, I was a little bit frightened. As a recently coming out young man going to a gay bar, these fiercely dressed people, twisting and bending gender, sometimes in ways that appeared more feminine than the women I was with, and other times in ways that challenged, that dissected, that reassembled, that totally messed with our ideas of what gender is about, of what music is and talent is. These people frightened me. This young man who grew up in a very safe, tight, little military, middle-class white box. It was thrilling and terrifying. And so in my adolescence, RuPaul singing Supermodel, You Better Work, which some of you may have heard before, and if you haven't, go look it up on YouTube. It's where RuPaul broke into the modern public consciousness, was just a flash in the pan, but not nearly as intimidating as those drag queens I met when I came out. And when he started with a new television program, RuPaul's Drag Race, a competitive reality TV show, I never even knew that it was on the air. It was obscure, tucked away on a channel now known as Logo that addresses mostly gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender issues and can only be watched through cable outlets or subscription or online. But once I started watching RuPaul's Drag Race, I was hooked. Not just on that show, but on all the spin-offs, on all of the music that RuPaul made and has made, and the music that the competitors on his show have made. All of you who are familiar with RuPaul and his current series already know that it just completed its 8th season a few weeks ago, crowning Bob the Drag Queen as America's next drag superstar. You already know then that it's a reality TV show in which aspiring artists compete through a series of challenges like costume design, making over other people, folks like gay military veterans, grooms about to be married to women who were made over as men, Little Women of LA, the challenge of creative insults called reading. Along with acting and singing and lip-syncing and dancing, they all compete to become part of the House of RuPaul and win $100,000. But those of you unfamiliar with RuPaul and Drag Race, a little history. RuPaul Andre Charles, whose professional persona is just RuPaul, who he refers to as the monster, was born in 1960 in Southern California. He's a bit of a rags to riches story. In his autobiography, Lettin' It All Hang Out, which is out of print, by the way, available for $50 and up on Amazon, and I had to get a copy through interlibrary loan from Boise. Not in Salt Lake, Boise. In his autobiography, he tells of his struggles growing up, gender atypical, black, low income, and how his mother, while a harsh woman and an alcoholic, would also gift him with wisdom, such as, what other people think of you is none of your business. as well as with unconditional love and support. In his autobiography, he writes, "I used to base so much of my life on what other people thought of me. I have a sense of myself and a security in knowing that I am my greatest asset. Whatever happens, I'm going to be fine. I have no fear. So I can actually go out and live my life and be myself, be the man that I am, be the woman that I am, be everything that I am." Ru also tells of a high school drama teacher who gave him what he repeatedly refers to as the most important advice of his lifetime. Don't take yourself too seriously. From his teenage years on, Ru was creating new looks as a performer and a person. As I mentioned, as a child of the 70s and 80s, I came to know him in Supermodel, and he later recorded a remake of Don't Go Breakin' My Heart with Elton John. Of course, as with most folks, the overnight sensation is really more about vision and determination and hard work. A story of RuPaul plastering posters all around New York City that simply said, "RuPaul is everything," when he was unknown. He took risks, and as described here in his recounting of social activism in drag in Atlanta as a young adult. He writes, "I was fearless. The South has always been a hotbed of racial tension and a stronghold for the Ku Klux Klan. From time to time, they march, heavily protected by the National Guard, and from time to time, everybody else marches against them, also heavily protected by the National Guard. Decked out in my all-grunge drag, jock strap, fishnets, high heels, and a humongous mohawk, I went to a march in Forsyth County. When I told people I was going, everybody thought I was mad. If anyone was going to get lynched by the Klan, everyone thought I was their number one candidate. But you know, while marching up the street, I looked over the shoulder of a National Guardsman and into the eyes of one of the Klansmen. And our eyes locked. And I realized that many of them probably liked Michael Jackson's Thriller album and Haagen-Dazs ice cream and Springtime in Georgia. What's the brouhaha? I understood then that my uniqueness was not just a spectacle for its own sake. And when I looked that person in the eyes, I realized that I was looking at myself. He had found a way to bring attention to himself and validate himself, and so had I. No matter what uniform he may be wearing, underneath it all, we are unique individuals, alone, aching to belong. Ultimately, we have that in common with each other. Who do you think you are? We're all born naked, and the rest is drag. Even more legitimized by the fact that, oh my gosh, there was an article in the New York Times art section about RuPaul's Drag Race. That must make it legitimate for liberals, right? In mid-May, an article by Jenna Worthman says, "The importance of Drag Race is that it's a rare space on television that relishes honesty and exploration, and that doesn't subscribe to the notion that all is well now that we live in a post-marriage equality world. At its best, drag exposes the charade of modern life, the idea that there are set rules to follow, and even if there are, that you can win by following them. Personal growth, personality, growth, and the ability to evolve and really survive are the traits prized most." These are some of the reasons why I am such a passionate follower of RuPaul, because he busts open these categories of identity and gender and race and class, and challenges them and engages them in ways that are playful and ironic and fun, but never bitter. He challenges us to keep our hearts open to each other, to ourselves, to the deeper truths around us. It gets us outside of our comfort zone. It pushes the limits of drag itself. In his show, there are places for everyone, all different kinds of drag queens, pageant queens, party city queens, queens who dress up like beer steins, and people who dress up like beauty pageants. And it is especially relevant now at Pride, this time, this celebration that honors the resistance that occurred in New York City in 1969, when patrons of the Stonewall Inn, a gay bar, refused the police raid on the mafia-owned establishment that was the only place that they could be served as gay people or as people who were wearing the wrong gender's clothes. It is important to remember that this is part of the heritage we celebrate at Pride, a revolutionary resistance to the structures that are and that would keep us confined and contained into tidy boxes, maintaining the status quo. Within this show and the world of RuPaul's Drag Race and all of the other offshoots, I feel permission to engage in my own drag and to name this as my minister drag. This stole that was made when I dressed for a Mamma Mia themed wedding once. They made it's a little blinged out, you know. I said, well, I'm a Unitarian, so you probably don't want the cross, but okay, you can go ahead and put it on there. It was an Elvis skin-tight bodysuit with flared pants, and I don't fit that anymore. But RuPaul with this also suggests that real drag does not cover up anything. Rather, it reveals. Real drag not only challenges, it reveals who we are, what we are. So perhaps the folks at the Pride Parade today, not just those people on our float in period costumes, but the leather daddies and the dykes on bikes, perhaps we could look at this as another form of drag, revealing something true, even as it is just a costume that is put on. RuPaul says he likes to use all the colors in the crayon box. So the gospel according to RuPaul, I think, is akin to our Unitarian forebears, who proclaimed that self-culture was the ultimate act and goal for all persons, fully developing a true self. First really articulated by William Ellery Channing in the 19th century, where he quoted the Gospels, or quoted the scriptures of Ephesians, saying, "Be imitators of God." Likeness to God was the goal, which was to be obtained through self-culture and engagement with beauty. Self-culture was a religious and intellectual and moral and social endeavor. I believe that RuPaul's good news draws upon this. The gospel, according to RuPaul, also calls on the tradition of the prophets to interrogate culture, to mock it when necessary, to destabilize, and to critique through play as well as protest. And the gospel according to RuPaul connects with our own associational gospel. There is recognition that none of this is done in isolation. It is through community that our best selves and our best world are created, honed, and known. The gospel, according to RuPaul, connects us with our Unitarian and Universalist roots at their core. There is one love, friends, and there is no one left behind. The good news is you already have everything you need right here, right now, to make the next moves to realize this gospel as it lives and breathes in you and as life is calling you to live it. On this Pride Sunday, commemorating the struggles of queer folks, minoritized because of sexual and affectional orientation, gender identity, and expression, we can sense and see how it is all part of a larger common struggle. To be seen and valued, the struggle to be heard and acknowledged, to be recognized for inherent worth and dignity, to have a place at the table, and, along with that, a responsibility to use our gifts in the service of the greater good. We are called, friends, by this tradition, which claims us, even as we are called by Mama Ru, to seek the divinity within us, that we are God in drag, to seek it and know it between us, beyond us, and to bring it forth with both humility and with pride. Thank you. Can I get an amen? Hey, there we go. So during our closing song, This Little Light of Mine, we're going to collect the offering this morning. And I invite you to think of and feel that act as it's happening. So we're going to be standing, which is not usual. We're not going to sing our doxology. But this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine, is giving ourselves to the world, right? The offering plate, also giving ourselves to the world. And if you don't have anything to put in it but your love, do that with intention. Don't just pass the basket by. This is a religious discipline of recognizing that the world is asking for your light. And if the most you can give is your attention, that is worth it. So as the offering is collected, I invite you to rise and join in singing our hymn number 118, This Little Light of Mine. Some closing words of wisdom from Mama Ru. If you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love somebody else? Can I get an amen? Amen. All right. Now everybody say love. Love. Everybody say love. Love. Now take that out into Pride and Salt Lake City and live the gospel according to you. Go in peace and make peace, my friends.